Please note, in order to comply with YouTube policy, this free version of the audiobook has bedroom scenes redacted. If you would like to read the full text, please get the ebook or print version of the story. Chapter 1. Kendall. My mind is replaying the awful events that have transpired over the past 36 hours. Since my brain is sluggish from a lack of sleep, I still can't quite believe the truth, even though I saw it with my own eyes. When I received the direct message on my live chat account that indicated I could purchase a dirty laundry secret about someone important in my life, I almost deleted it. I should have deleted it. What good could possibly come from knowing a loved one's deepest, darkest secret? I ignored the message for a few minutes, but wasn't able to deny its siren's call for long. The desire to know overtook my senses. Some sick, twisted sense of curiosity wouldn't allow me to simply go about my day in peaceful oblivion. I needed to know what someone else was trying to hide. The snippets of news that I've seen lately should have been enough of a warning not to respond to the message. People far and wide are finding out secrets that they never wanted to know. Murders are at an all-time high, and now I understand why. I almost had blood on my hands. That's why I had to get out of there. Rage consumed me when I found out the terrible truth. Getting in my car and driving far and fast is the only thing that saved me from taking a life, or preferably two. If I could go back to the time when I first received that message, knowing what I know now, I don't know if I would respond to it again. That clickbait teaser has caused me more heartache than I ever dreamed it could be possible to endure, but the dark side of me is glad to know the truth. At least I'm no longer playing the fool. The long, narrow road ahead of me blurs in my vision as I picture the little blue link taunting me with the promise of a major secret revealed. Despite the loud music in my car, I hear my mouse clicking to follow the link as I revisit the scene in my mind over and over again. After my finger tapped the button, a colorful page lit up my laptop screen with a tantalizing hint in bright purple letters. Send $5,000 and we'll share your boyfriend's biggest secret. I'd stared at that screen for so long, the purple letters appeared to marbleize. I was happy with Lucas, and he'd been hinting for a while now that he might be almost ready to propose. Besides, I'm not the kind of person who has an extra $5,000 lying around in a drawer. I spent over an hour trying to convince myself that I shouldn't pay the hackers for this secret. These people were taking advantage of the widespread data leak and using their computer skills to play on others' insecurities. I shouldn't fall into this trap. Nothing good would come from it. But how could I marry a man who had a secret from me? Besides, it might not be anything that bad. Maybe he just has a messy closet where he hoards old newspapers, or he doesn't wash his hands after he uses the restroom. That second one would be gross, but I'm sure I could convince him to start practicing better hygiene. Even as I was telling myself that I shouldn't find out this secret, part of my brain was calculating how to pull the money together to pay the exorbitant fee. It would take every dime I could scrape together, but I could make it work. It was almost like the hackers knew exactly how much money to ask me for. Shaking my head, I realized that they have open access to every tiny detail about our lives. Of course, they can figure out how much money a person has, or in my case, doesn't have. When the radio station I've been listening to for the past hour gets fuzzy, I begin searching for a new station. I land on one playing an oldie but goodie Britney Spears song. The upbeat tune would normally improve my mood, but nothing can cheer me up right now. After I'd sent the fee to the hackers, they'd linked me to numerous screenshots of direct messages that were supposedly exchanged between Lucas and other women time-stamped during the months we had been dating. Wanting to believe the best of my man, I immediately fired back that these could have easily been photoshopped. That's when they sent the photo. That darn photo. It was a selfie taken in a mirror of redacted. Their heads were cut out of the shot, but something about that room was familiar. As I blinked and looked closer, I saw on the side table the framed photo of Lucas and me at the farmer's market that I'd given him for Valentine's Day. Upon further inspection, I realized the heart-shaped dimple at the side of his hip that I love redacted was also visible in the picture. I glared at the woman's thin leg wrapped around him. Despite how much I'd like for my legs to be that long and shapely, they aren't. There was no denying it after seeing that. Lucas had been with someone else while we were together. The mere idea of it makes my heart ache as if it has been left on a hot burner. The hours after receiving that photograph are a blur in my mind. I cried and wailed and threw things, mostly Lucas's belongings, but I was in such a tizzy I hurled some of my own. In fact, I'm pretty sure I broke my favorite teapot. I guess it's just another casualty of Lucas's lies. Looking back on it now, I wish I'd just called to scream at him rather than storming over to his apartment. I'd been ready to rip him a new one when I used the key that he'd given me wrapped as a gift for Christmas to unlock his front door. The sounds coming from his bathroom made it obvious that he wasn't in there alone, but some sick, twisted side of me needed to witness his betrayal with my own eyes. I wanted him to know he'd been caught, and for him to see firsthand the pain he'd caused. I stood outside the bathroom door for a long moment, listening to the shower water running as a background to their passionate noises. It was obvious, redacted. A smart woman would have turned around right then and left. I had plenty of evidence that Lucas was cheating on me. Why did I feel the need to torture myself by seeing it with my own eyes? My hand shook as I reached out for the door handle. I didn't want to see what was going on inside his bathroom, yet something compelled me to push onward. Redacted. Lucas knows how to please a woman. There's no doubt about that. I guess I'd been foolish to believe that I'd been the only one with whom he was sharing his bedroom talents. Redacted. I needed to make my move. After taking in a deep breath, I turned the door handle and barged into the bathroom. After whipping the shower curtain back, I blinked and tried to clear my vision as I stared at the stunned, wet couple. Redacted. They both remained frozen in shock as they gawked at me.
What do you think you're doing?
Lucas shouted at me, as if I were the one in the wrong. I wasn't able to respond to him or scream at him like I had intended to because I was too busy staring into the woman's beautiful, unique aquamarine-colored eyes. I would recognize them anywhere, especially since they are so similar to mine. My devastated voice emerged in a croaky squeak when I uttered the single word, name and question that was swirling around my stunned mind. Mom? Chapter 2. The horrific mental image of my mother redacted is forever ingrained into my mind. Every time I close my eyes, I see redacted. It took her a seemingly endless moment to register my interruption of their interlude. When her gaze finally locked with mine, I could swear that I saw the tiniest smile upturn her lips before she masked it. She wanted to hurt me. That realization is the most messed up part of all of this. My mom, the person who is supposed to have my back no matter what, did this intentionally to hurt me. There are plenty of other men she could have been with, but she chose Lucas. I almost wonder if she wanted me to catch her with him. It's beyond messed up, but this is the life I was born into. My relationship with my mother has always been strained, but this takes it to an entirely new, horribly low level. I can't imagine what I have done to make her hate me this much. Aren't moms supposed to care for and protect their children? It would be easy to say the problem is with her, but she gets along fine with my sister Quinn. The two of them are never going to be best friends, but they don't have the same level of animosity simmering just beneath the surface of their interactions as Mom and I do. If I could go back in time and change whatever it is that makes my mother hate me so much, I would happily do it, but I don't even know when or why it started. Tears begin pooling in my eyes as I think about how our relationship should be. We should be planning day trips together to eat lunch and shop. She should be my confidant and #1 fan. Instead, she's redacted with my boyfriend and doing her best to hurt me. I pound my fist against the steering wheel, furious that I still care about her and what she thinks. She has proven over and over again that she doesn't love me. This latest betrayal is simply her latest strike in our long twisted tale of bitterness and hurt feelings. It is time for me to forget about forging a real relationship with my mother and move on without her in my life, but that is more easily said than done. The little girl inside me still craves her mother's love, despite the woman's many faults. My mother's betrayal hurts so much more than Lucas's does. He is the one who was supposedly in a committed relationship with me, but he is a known player. Even though I wouldn't admit it, even to myself, I almost expected him to cheat on me, just not with my mom. The only good thing about all of this is that I must have reached rock bottom. Things can't get much worse from here. As if the universe is punishing me for even thinking such a bold thought, the air conditioner in my old car splutters and stops blowing cool air. Really? I ask the empty car, beyond frustrated with everyone and everything. For the first time in many hours of driving, I glance around my surroundings. I've been so focused on getting as far away from the city as possible that I hadn't done much more than ruminate and occasionally stop for gas in a long, long time. I appear to be on a remote highway in the desert. I remember crossing the state line into Arizona a while back, but I have no idea if that was 2 hours ago or 5. There isn't anything but sand, red mountains, and giant cactuses for as far as my eyes can see. Just as I'm wondering if the plural form of cactus should be cacti, I reach for my water bottle and find it empty. Great. Now that I have no air conditioning or water, the sun seems to beat through the windows with even greater strength. My throat is parched and the heat is so intense it feels like I'm baking. Unsure if it will help, I roll down my window. The blast of hot air is like putting my head in a preheated oven. Deciding that's worse than no breeze at all, I quickly close the window. This entire scenario is getting worse by the minute. Normally, I stay off my phone while driving, or at least pull over before looking at the screen, but there is nothing out here for me to hit. I tap my phone's screen to search for the closest gas station, and try to be patient as the indicator spins and searches for a signal. When nothing pops up, I wave the device in the air, hoping to pick up at least one bar of service to allow my search results to deliver. As I struggle to find a signal, the thought arises in my mind that at least I'm not walking. The mirages up ahead on the pavement truly look like water until I drive closer to them. They always remain just out of reach. It's easy to see how people would be tricked by them while stumbling around out here in the heat. When the car makes a stuttering sound and begins emitting steam from under the hood, I silently curse myself for even thinking the thought about walking. It's almost like I dared the universe to somehow make this impossibly awful day even worse. I try driving a bit further, but the temperature gauge on my dashboard goes into the red zone to the hot indicator. Deciding there is no point in driving until the car is unfixable, I pull over on the side of the road and turn off the engine. After popping the hood of the car, I emerge from the driver's seat and glare down at the overheated engine. I know next to nothing about cars, but I'd be willing to bet that it needs water or coolant of some type. Trying to swallow around the dry, burning lump in my throat, I realize that's exactly what I need too. Soon. Staring off in the distance and trying to figure out what to do, I blink several times to clear my vision. I could swear that there is a vehicle coming across the sand in my direction. The pessimist in me decides it's probably just another mirage, but it sure seems to be coming closer, even though I'm not moving. Relief nearly overwhelms me when the four-wheeler and the man driving it approach. The next emotion that swims through my system is fear. With my luck lately, it's quite possible that this man isn't here to help me. My final thought as he draws near is that no one is around to hear me scream.
Chapter 3. Thom. The last thing I want to do today is rescue some dim-witted woman who has no business driving alone in the desert. I should leave her here stranded and afraid for a while, but she probably doesn't have enough sense to realize how much danger she's in. I'm not sure how it became my job to save this damsel in distress, but since I'm the only other human around, I guess the responsibility falls to me. I can't just leave her here to suffer, tempting as that thought may be. As my ATV draws closer to her broken-down vehicle, I realize that of course, she's beautiful. That knowledge annoys me even more. I don't want a desirable female around to distract me from my misery. Sulking is easier alone. I glare at her as I shut off the four-wheeler's engine. She flutters her long black eyelashes in my direction. Certain that her flirtation would convince any other hot-blooded male to do her bidding, I stiffen my spine, determined not to fall prey to her obvious charm.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming to my rescue,
she says in a breathy voice. I narrow my eyes into a glare at her, not wanting her to think this will blossom into a friendship or anything more. She startles at the angry growl that emerges from deep in my throat. The jump scare makes her eyes widen, and I have to contain my urge to stare into them. Her irises are a beautiful and unique color that isn't quite blue or green. I've never seen any shade so pretty, but I'm sure as heck not going to let her know that. Gritting my teeth together, I reach into the pocket of my utility vest to retrieve my water canteen. After I thrust it in her direction, her delicate hand tentatively accepts it. Although I can tell she's desperate for a drink, she warily eyes the canteen as if it might bite her. "You're thirsty, right?" I growl. She nods her head before twisting the lid off the jug. My annoyance grows by the second as she sniffs the liquid and uses the bottom of her shirt to wipe off the mouth of the container, as if she thinks I have cooties. When the frustrated huff of air emits from my lips, she angles her chin in my direction as if daring me to challenge her. Deciding that I don't care enough to argue with her, I stalk back over to the ATV to retrieve one of the gallon jugs of water that I keep strapped to the back for emergencies. I'm thankful for my leather gloves as I remove the hot radiator cap. Since the car is sitting in the blazing sun, turning off the engine has done little to cool it down. Hoping the water is hot enough from being outside to not crack the car's engine block, due to the temperature change, I slowly pour the liquid in. Once I finish, I turn to the woman to say, "Get in the car, blast the heat as high as it will go, and turn on the engine."
The heat?
She splutters.
Are you trying to kill me?
The friendly route would be to explain to her that running the heater will help draw heat from the engine to the interior of the car, but nobody ever accused me of being a gentleman. Instead, I mutter under my breath, "Don't tempt me." When she remains motionless and gawking at me, I yell, "Just do as I say." My loudness startles her into action. She's huffy about it, but she complies with my request. Once the car is running and the heater is on, she jumps out of the driver's seat as if it's on fire. She crosses her arms over her chest before saying,
"As if it wasn't already hot enough in there to roast a chicken, let's turn on the heat and burn my face off."
I turn away, so she won't see the smile that upturns my lips at her pluck. If I were someone else, I'd be utterly charmed by her. Reminding myself who I really am, and that I don't deserve a delightful woman like this by my side, I morph my expression back into a glare before barking at her, "Check the temperature gauge on the dashboard." She leans in the open door and squints at the indicator. After standing to her full height, she says to me,
"It's not in the red zone, but it's close."
"You better get going then, before it overheats again," I say, before taking my flask of water from her and turning back toward my ATV. Even though my back is to her, I know she stamps her foot in frustration just before she says,
"That's it? You're just going to leave me out here alone? What if the car overheats again?"
She seems to be expecting an answer, so I say without turning, "Shut off the engine."
"Well, how far is it to the next gas station?"
Her voice is taking on a definite panicked tone. "Far," I answer gruffly. I can practically hear the wheels turning in her mind as she asks,
"Maybe I should turn back?"
After rubbing my stubbly chin, I shrug my shoulders and say, "It's about the same distance no matter which way you go." Far. As I climb onto the four-wheeler, I hear her complain,
"You could at least act like you care a tiny bit about my safety."
"It sounds like you're looking for a Prince Charming type of hero to whisk in and rescue you, so let me be perfectly clear. That's not me." The classy, gorgeous woman's pert nose actually snorts with disdain, before she says in a crisp tone,
"Believe me, I can see that."
It's tempting to tell her that I used to want to be the knight in shining armor rescuer type, but I don't want to give her any hope that I can be that kind of upstanding guy for her. Instead, I say, "Good luck to you." Her flat palms raise up, as if she can't believe this is how our interaction is ending. Eventually, she says in a flat tone,
"Thanks for the small amount of help you gave me."
I give her a curt nod of my head, before starting the ATV's rumbling engine. Without glancing back at her, I take off, determined to put some distance between us before she wiggles her way under my skin. As I drive toward my home, I whisper to myself, "Don't look back. Don't look back." Despite my determined mantra, my head turns to the side. Her car is stopped a short distance down the road from where I left her. Steam is billowing from the engine. Ugh.
Chapter 4. That jerk is actually leaving me out here stranded and alone in the desert. I won't survive long in this heat, but he truly doesn't seem to care. I'd known my car wasn't going to make it far since the indicator was almost at the H before I even put it into gear, but it barely makes it a quarter of a mile before the gauge red zones. I pull over on the side of the road and shut off the engine. This is it. The angry man was my last chance, and he is going to leave me to die here. My life is hanging in the balance at the mercy of a complete stranger, and he doesn't have any empathy for my precarious situation. Just as everything begins fully dawning on my brain that this might truly be the end for me, he finally stops his four-wheeler. He stares in my direction. I can tell he is still debating leaving me here to die. Finally, he makes the right call and angles the ATV around to head back in my direction. I swipe at the glistening pool of sweat on my brow, as I wonder if I should be relieved or concerned that the terrifying stranger is returning. He climbs off of his ATV, with the ever-present surly look still evident on his angular face. I remain silent as I glare back at him, doing my best to hide my discomfort. The idea of leaving here with him is the next to the last thing I want to do, with staying here alone barely beating it out as my worst nightmare. He stalks toward me with a stern glare etched onto his face. There is no denying that he would be incredibly handsome, if his expression wasn't so perpetually grumpy.
Are you coming?
He barks, startling me. Without waiting for an answer, he heads back toward his four-wheeler. Trying to hide my significant fear, I force my tone not to come out in a desperate squeak when I ask, "Can't you fix my car?"
No.
His gruff voice answers matter-of-factly. Still uncertain about going anywhere with this grouch, I say, "You're a complete stranger to me. I don't even know your name. For all I know, you could be a murderous lunatic." Turning back, he gives me an indifferent look, as he says,
"Fine, stay here and take your chances with the elements if you like."
I don't like that option, but I'm not sure if it's better or worse than leaving here with this man. Deciding to try to steer the conversation into friendlier territory, I say, "My name is Kendall Landish. What is yours?"
Thom.
When I blink expectantly at him, he adds in a dry tone,
With an H.
Since he obviously knows I was hoping for his last name, I can't resist saying, "It's nice to meet you, Thom." He narrows a glare at me over my over-exaggeration of the soft TH sound. In a firm tone, he says,
It's Thom with a hard T. Most people spell Thomas with an H, but shorten it to Thom, omitting the H. It doesn't make any logical sense.
Since he obviously feels quite strongly about this, I decide it's best not to tease him further. Pronouncing his name correctly, I ask, "So Thom, do you have a last name?" It takes him so long to respond, I become convinced he isn't going to. Finally, he says quietly,
I do.
At my exasperated glare, he adds,
It's Baker.
I brighten at this, just before saying to him, "Please tell me you enjoy baking because I could really go for some fresh-baked cookies or bread right now."
No, my only baking skills are tossing frozen pizzas in the oven, but half the time I burn those.
He answers. Great, I mutter sarcastically as I retrieve my purse and other belongings from my car. He glares at my bags before taking them from me. Once he has them stowed and secured on the back of the ATV, he climbs on and gives me an expectant look. Deciding that even with his sullen attitude, my odds of survival are likely better with him than facing the harsh conditions out here alone, I use my phone to snap a quick photo of him and the small license plate on the back of the ATV. Composing a text to my sister, I type, "If I go missing, find Thom Baker in the Arizona desert." After I attach the picture, I click the send button. Of course, the message spins and goes nowhere, but I'm hoping it will go through when Thom gets us closer to civilization. Seeing no other viable alternatives, I take a deep breath and climb onto the back of the four-wheeler with the cranky man.
Chapter 5. The last thing I need is a beautiful woman invading my personal space and distracting me from fixing my mistakes, but I couldn't just leave Kendall out there all alone. The blasted woman didn't even have any water with her. She wouldn't have lasted long if I'd given in to temptation and left her stranded by the side of the road. As I drive us toward my desert home, I try not to think about how good her arms feel wrapped around my torso as she holds on. Despite the blazing midday heat, her warmth along my back is addictive. No one could blame me for driving the four-wheeler a bit faster and more recklessly than necessary, once I realize that she holds onto me tighter when she is a bit scared. I slow down when I notice that I can actually feel her heart pounding through my shirt as I weave around the sand dunes. My intent isn't to terrify the wits out of her. My mind wanders as I drive a bit more cautiously. I'm curious if she likes it here as much as I do, surrounded by the intense sunlight and dryness of the desert. My guess is that she won't enjoy the extreme conditions out here, and will be anxious to get back to what so many call civilization. It doesn't make sense, but some lonely sliver of my heart wishes that she would see the awe-inspiring beauty out here that I do. Despite my long-held belief that I could never feel this way, the idea pops into my mind that it might be nice if Kendall stayed with me for a while, so we could get to know each other better. Shaking my head to clear it, I remind myself that Kendall would likely be deeply disturbed by what I've done. She would never willingly stay out here alone with me if she knew my secrets. When my large house comes into view, I feel Kendall stiffen behind me. Even as jaded as I am, I'm still amazed by the stunning beauty of the mansion I had built in the middle of nowhere. It's a self-sustaining vision that I created so I could hide away from the world. But now I'm bringing someone else who isn't on my payroll inside, something I told myself I would never do. I slow the ATV to a stop, shut off the engine, and turn back to look at Kendall. She's staring at the house, her jaw hanging open and her eyes wide. It's beyond thrilling that she looks as enamored by the stunning property as I feel every single time I come home. The sunlight makes Kendall's long hair shimmer. She's beautiful, and I'm not just thinking that because it's been so long since I've been with a woman. The strange, strong urge to take her in my arms is nearly overwhelming, but I keep that to myself as I climb off the four-wheeler and head toward my front door. A gentleman would help Kendall stand and carry her belongings inside, but I don't want her to get the wrong idea about me. I am not a hero here to rescue her, and it's best if we both remember that. I open the door and turn to ask, "You coming?" She scrambles to retrieve her belongings and hurries up the walkway to my home. When Kendall joins me at my front door, I look down at her. Despite my best efforts to remain aloof, a slight smile curls the corners of my lips when I see the expectant look in her eyes. She's going to love my home. I'm sure of it. The first thing she comments on after stepping over the threshold is how cool the temperature is inside. She sets her belongings down and twirls in the tiled entryway as she says,
"Ah, I never fully appreciated how wonderful air conditioning is."
"Well then don't let it all out," I snap, doing my best to sound truly annoyed as I glare at the open door behind her. She reaches out to pull the door closed, before muttering,
"Right. Sorry about that, Your Highness."
Her sassy apology makes another layer of protection around my heart peel away. By all rights, she should be terrified to be here alone with me, yet she's standing up to my gruffness and making me want to be the charming rescuer that she deserves. I'm ready to sweep her up into my arms and take her into my bedroom, but I know deep down that being together isn't what would be best for either of us. Trying to hide my feelings, I offer her something to drink. "How about some coffee?"
"Coffee?"
She stares at me like I've offered her a moldy, month-old burrito.
"Well, if that's all you have, then I guess it will do, but I'd really prefer something cold right now."
Feeling like a dolt, I head to the kitchen. Once inside, I run my fingers through my hair. There's a reason my brother, the dumb jock, always did well with the ladies, while I spent my weekends alone in my room playing on my computer. Brainy nerds do not have any idea how to be smooth. Coffee. I mutter the word aloud, fully disgusted with myself for offering Kendall a hot beverage when she was just nearly roasted alive in the desert. It hadn't even crossed my mind to amend the offer to iced coffee. So much for being a genius. It clearly does nothing for my swagger. Shaking off my shame, I head to the cupboard, pull out 2 glasses, and fill them up from the freezer's automatic ice dispenser. When I return to the living room, I see that Kendall has wandered into my desert sanctuary to get a closer look at the indoor towering cactus garden. Her eyes are wide as she reaches out to gingerly touch one of the sharp needles. "Careful," I say from behind her. Evidently, my voice is a bit too loud, because she startles and the spike pricks her finger.
"Ow. Thanks for the warning,"
she says sarcastically, before sucking on her injured index finger. Feeling bad for causing the mishap, I allow my tone to take on the huskiness it seems to want to portray around Kendall when I say, "Let me see it." I set our 2 tall glasses of ice water down on the side table, so I can properly inspect her pinpoint-sized injury. Evidently, I take too long because she yanks her hand away from me and says in an exasperated tone,
"It's fine."
"I'll go get you a bandage," I offer. As I move around her to head toward the master bathroom, I can't resist turning back to tease her. "Try not to hurt yourself anymore while I'm gone." She gives me an exasperated look before saying,
"No problem. I'll just give myself the grand tour."
"That's fine," I offer before pointing out a closed door and adding, "But don't try to go in there." I can tell by the twinkling in her eyes that I've just made a huge mistake. I've managed to make the one room I can't allow her to see into an irresistible temptation.
Chapter 6. I'm dying to know what is behind the closed door that Thom made off limits. It's very Beauty and the Beast of him to ban me from a certain area of his large home. Of course, I know I won't be able to properly explore the mystery room in the time it takes for him to retrieve me a bandage, so I comply with his request by avoiding the closed door, for now. Do I hear water, or is it an oral hallucination from being dehydrated in the desert? I ask, when he returns to the open-concept front room which I've been exploring. He gingerly takes my hand and focuses on gently wrapping the bandage around my finger. I try not to notice how nice his tender touch feels as he cares for my minuscule injury. Once he finishes, he answers,
"Yes, that's my indoor waterfall. Want to see it?"
It's obvious by the glint in his eyes that he is proud of the water feature, so I nod my head enthusiastically. He leads me around the corner into a hallway that gurgles with an entire floor-to-ceiling wall of trickling, clear water that trails into an enormous decorative fountain with a beautiful copper and green mermaid. I can't help but gasp at the sight, since I've never seen anything like it. It's an extravagant and romantic feature for such a gruff man to have included in the design of his home. He smiles proudly, seeing my strong reaction to his unique waterfall.
"Isn't it a work of art?"
"It's absolutely magnificent," I reply, unable to stop staring at it.
"I designed it myself, along with the rest of the house. It's a completely self-sustaining system that uses power and water collected by the home's state-of-the-art solar, wind, and rain collection grid."
Truly impressed, I say, "Genius."
"So I'm told."
He quips, making me wonder even more about this mysterious man. Deciding that being smart doesn't mean he's naturally hospitable, I opt for boldness rather than subtlety. "Okay, Mr. Genius. I'm starving. Let's have one of those fabulous burnt frozen pizzas you've been bragging about." He chuckles at me before turning toward the kitchen. Over his shoulder, he says,
"As you wish, my lady."
I can't help but sigh at that comment. If only he could be this sweet and charming all the time, I'd be one happy woman. While he preheats the oven and preps the frozen pizza, I make myself at home in his kitchen by getting out dinner plates and setting the table. Remembering our water glasses, I retrieve them from the large entryway and down mine, before refilling it and setting it by my plate. He joins me at the table, while we wait for the pizza to bake. I shift in my seat when he turns his disarming whiskey gaze in my direction. Evidently sensing my discomfort, he offers,
"I'll go call a car repair shop to see about getting your vehicle towed in for repair."
When I hear the murmur of his voice from the den, I glance toward the beckoning, forbidden closed door. My gut tells me that his phone call won't take long enough to risk having a look, but I'm desperate to see what's in that room. Silently praying that it's not where he stores the bodies of unfortunate souls with broken-down cars, I remain seated and gulp down more water. Soon he returns to the kitchen, and I'm glad I didn't try to take a peek at the room while he was gone. I'll have more time to explore tonight after he goes to sleep. I smile at him as he slides a slice of golden, crispy pizza onto my plate. "This isn't burned at all. I believe you've earned your name, Mr. Baker." He chuckles as he sits down with his own plate.
"You better make sure it tastes okay before complimenting my cooking skills."
After blowing on the piping hot slice, I take a large bite and moan with delight as my eyes roll back in my head. Once I swallow and refocus my vision, I realize that Thom is staring at me with undeniable desire visible in his gaze. Feeling awkward about my overreaction, I take another big bite before asking around the mouthful, "What?" "I'm starving." His eyes sparkling with amusement, Thom says,
"I've just never seen anyone react so strongly to a simple piece of frozen pizza. It might be worth cooking you a real meal to see if you'd actually redacted, right here at the table.
I cough in surprise at his bold words. After chugging down the rest of my water to clear my throat, I say in a prim tone, I happen to enjoy eating.
And apparently, I enjoy watching you eat,
He says appreciatively. As much as I'd intended to keep things strictly platonic with him, there's no denying that part of me is thoroughly enjoying this new flirty side of him. I fidget in my seat as I finish my first slice of pizza and grab another. I think it would be wise to keep some distance between us. His eyebrows pinch together, he asks.
Why?
Because. Before I can finish answering him, a loud beeping sound interrupts my thoughts as a hidden panel in the wall of the kitchen slides open, revealing a high-tech switchboard with an intimidating display of buttons and lights. A robotic female voice announces,
Thom, a hacker is trying to breach your outermost layer of security protocols. Your attention is needed immediately.
After giving the alert, the panel's door slides closed. Stunned, I sit still, staring at the now normal-looking wall and blinking blankly as I try to decide if that actually happened or if my imagination is running wild. One glance at Tom's alarmed expression tells me that something is terribly wrong. He quickly scoots his chair back and says,
You'll have to excuse me. Your bedroom is down the hallway and on the left, just past the mermaid. Good night.
With that, he scurries out of the kitchen. He taps some buttons on a security pad, gets a retinal scan, and disappears through the forbidden doorway. As the automatic door slides shut behind him, it becomes obvious that I won't ever be able to sneak into his secret room undetected. After emitting a frustrated huff, I say to the empty room, Don't worry about the dishes. I'll take care of them. Thom is likely going to be hidden away for the rest of the night. That being the case, I guess I might as well go to bed early and get some much-needed rest. After I down another slice of pizza, I begin cleaning up the dinner mess. As I toss his half-eaten slice of pizza in the trash, something intriguing at the top of the recycling bin catches my eye. With an ornery grin, I grab it and begin formulating my plan for tomorrow.
Chapter 7. I managed to avert last night's security breach crisis, but just barely. I've not been at the top of my game lately, and it is starting to show. The wolves are circling and ready to pounce. Of course, having a beautiful woman in my house distracting me is not helping matters. I need to focus on my business and fixing the mess I made, not wonder what Kendall will look like fresh out of the shower, or imagine the expression her face would make as she redacted. I want to stop thinking about her, but the fresh smell of coconut and vanilla that assaults my nostrils as I head to the kitchen makes it obvious that isn't going to be possible. Kendall looks comfortable in my kitchen as she putters around, brewing a pot of coffee and making toast. I want to be annoyed by what a natural addition she is to my home, but I can't seem to drum up the energy. Instead, I freeze and watch her fluid movements. She startles when she catches sight of me out of the corner of her vision.
Oh, good morning. I didn't realize you were already up.
Never went to bed, I grumble as I shuffle over to the coffee pot and pour myself a mug of the steaming brew.
That's not good for your health,
she murmurs as she spreads a generous blob of peanut butter onto a slice of toast. Her voice sounds truly concerned. I don't want to like having someone care about my well-being, but there is no denying that it feels phenomenal. When she turns and hands me the plate with 2 slices of toast on it, I glare down at it. It's been so long since anyone did anything nice for me, the concept seems almost foreign. Not wanting to sound as grateful as I feel, I ask, No jelly? She seems completely unperturbed by my gruffness when she says,
Try it with just the peanut butter. It's what I eat every morning, and it's wonderful. If you don't like it, you can add some jelly.
I plop down at the table with my plate and mug. After blowing on the coffee, I take a tentative sip. Delicious. Darn it.
Any news on my car?
She asks as she breezily sits down in the chair opposite me. They're going to tow it in and have a look. It will probably be at least a week before we hear anything, I warn her.
A week?
She sounds alarmed.
They could probably build it from scratch in a week.
Not these guys, I quip before clarifying, they move at their own pace, super slow.
Well, maybe we should take it somewhere else,
she suggests. They don't have a lot of competition around here, but you're welcome to try to find someone else to take a look at it. I offer, knowing full well that she won't find anyone else willing to drive out here to get it.
Hemp.
She lets out the frustrated sound, but doesn't object further to the time frame. I don't have the heart to tell her that my guesstimate of a week is probably the best-case scenario. Instead, I take a cautious bite of my toast. The warm peanut butter has gotten all gooey and melted down into the cracks and crevices of the perfectly toasted bread. The resulting flavor is absolutely magnificent. She's giving me an expectant look, so after I swallow, I downplay it by shrugging my shoulders and saying, "It tastes okay." With a knowing smile, she says,
"You know you love it."
I do love it, but there's no way I'm admitting that to her. We eat in silence until Kendall asks me,
"So, did you fix last night's security breach?"
It takes me a moment to process how she knows about what happened, until I remember that she was sitting here when Lana alerted me to the crisis. I put all of my systems in place, assuming that I would always be alone in my house. At least I was smart enough to install a fireproof, snoop-proof door to my lair. I just put a Band-Aid on it as a temporary fix, I finally answer. She wiggles her bandaged index finger at me as she says,
"You're good at that."
I chuckle, enjoying her flirty tone more than I imagined could be possible. Turning all business, she says,
"Well, I'm glad you have that under control because I have something I need you to do."
My eyebrows shoot up almost to my hairline as I wonder what she could want from me. Trying to sound nonchalant, I ask, "Oh? What's that?" She picks up the embossed invitation and waves it in my direction.
"You're going to your 10-year class reunion."
I narrow my eyes into an angry glare before answering in a terse tone, "Absolutely not."
"Why not?"
she asks. Her lips pooch out into an adorable pout, and it's all I can do to keep from leaning over this table and claiming them. Reminding myself that I'm annoyed with her, I say, "Because I don't want to." She huffs and crosses her arms over her ample chest. My eyes are drawn down, but I force them back up to mirror her angry gaze.
"Why not?"
she demands again, not backing down at all. I don't want to get into this with her, so I say, "High school was not a good time for me. I don't want to see any of those people ever again." Her expression softens. Not wanting her to feel sorry for me, I add, "Didn't everyone hate high school?"
"No, it was actually one of the best times of my life."
she answers wistfully. Her eyes brightening, she adds,
"If you had a rough time in school, your reunion is the perfect opportunity to go back and show any mean kids how successful you've become."
I'm shaking my head, but she doesn't seem to notice as she continues.
"I would love to be able to go to my reunion, but I don't want everyone to see what a hot mess I've turned into since graduation."
Her final statement catches me off guard. How could someone so lovely believe herself to be in any way unworthy? As if sensing that I don't believe her, she reveals,
"I was driving alone in the desert so far from home because I was trying to run away from the memory of seeing my boyfriend redacted my mom."
The revelation shocks and disgusts me. Kendall deserves so much better than that type of horrible treatment. As I'm pondering this, she brightens and says in a hopeful tone,
"I could go with you to your reunion if you need a date."
"I don't need a date because I'm not going," I answer, likely sounding a tad too vehement about it. She looks perturbed as she stares at me over her steaming coffee mug. Eventually, she says,
"Fine."
The single word makes it sound as if I have won this battle, but something in my gut tells me that this will not be the end of it.
Chapter 8. Thom spends all day in his secret man cave. I putter around his house and enjoy his high-speed satellite internet. He has better coverage out here in the middle of nowhere than I've ever had living in my apartment in the city. He also gets every television and movie channel imaginable on his wall-sized, giant screen TV. It's nice to take a break from reality and just relax for a little bit. I'll worry later about how I'm going to pay for my car repairs and where I'm going to go after I leave here. I shoot off a quick text to my sister Quinn to let her know I'm safe, but I don't bother to reach out to my mom. Not that she'd worry about me anyway, but if she does have some tiny sliver of concern for my well-being, she deserves to wait to hear from me. I'm not sure when or if I'll ever be able to forgive her for what she did, but she is the only mother I have. Deciding not to worry about her right now, I turn on a high-drama cop show. I'm not paying much attention to the people on the screen, because my mind keeps drifting back to Thom. I wonder what he's doing in that room, and why he's so secretive about it. It feels strange with only the two of us here in his house, and no one around for many miles. I'm used to being in the city, where, even when I'm alone, people and noises abound just beyond the thin walls of my apartment. The door to his lair never opens all day long, even when I knock on it to tell him lunch is ready. Silence greets me, so I eat alone. After I finish eating one of the gourmet ham and cheese sandwiches I made, along with half a bag of deli chips, I clean up the mess and decide to further explore his large home. The room he's currently occupying is off limits to me, but he didn't ban me from snooping elsewhere. He has quite an impressive art collection. The piece that stands out the most to me is an abstract painting with vivid colors that meld together seamlessly. It's oddly different from most nondescript paintings because the coloration is strikingly beautiful. I blink my eyelids to try to make out the artist's signature and am surprised to see the initials TB. Could that stand for Thom Baker? Is the mysterious grouch who opened his home to me a talented artist? The more time I spend in this man's home, the more questions I have. Tom's deep voice breaks me from my trance.
Do you like it?
Startled, I jump a little, but quickly recover. Without breaking my gaze from the painting, I answer him. It's gorgeous. Did you paint it? He walks up close enough behind me that I can feel his warmth at my back. The silence hangs heavily in the air for so long, I become convinced he is going to ignore my question. Eventually, he says,
I did, a long time ago.
His tone has taken on an edge of melancholy. Hoping to cheer him, I say, please tell me you haven't given up painting. You are a true talent.
Just taking a break, while I fix a giant mess I created at my real job.
He answers, moving away from me. Missing the flare of heat I enjoyed from his nearness, I turn and watch him stalk toward the kitchen. What sort of mess did you make? I need to know what could be so bad that it would take the very talented painter away from his craft.
I really can't say, but it's bad.
He answers, leaning back against the granite kitchen counter, arms crossed in front of him. Why? Is what you did illegal? I ask flippantly, pretending to not care, but my pulse is pounding and my stomach churns at the thought of Thom going to prison, even though I know I should be more concerned about possibly being stranded here alone with a dangerous criminal.
It is.
He answers simply. Letting out a frustrated huff over his unwillingness to elaborate, I ask, is it the kind of illegal that earns you a slap on the wrist or a lifetime in prison?
Probably that second option.
He answers with a smirk, as if we aren't discussing the punishment for some sort of heinous crime he has committed. When he catches a glimpse of the horrified expression on my face, he quickly adds,
But like I said, I'm trying to fix it.
Right, I answer, unsure what to think of the intriguing man. He picks up the sandwich I left out for him and takes a large bite. Nodding with approval between bites, he says,
I guess it's not all bad having someone else in my space.
It's probably the closest he's going to come to complimenting me, so I nod in thanks as I sit down at the table to try to collect my thoughts. Thom eats in silence for a few minutes, then says playfully,
You're cute when you're flustered.
My mouth opens to answer, but no words emerge. Deciding that if he was going to hurt me, he probably already would have, I ask, Is there anything I can do to help you sort out this illegal predicament? His expression softens. Sounding stunned that I would offer, he answers,
I don't think so, but it's truly kind of you to ask.
Feeling useless, I stare down at the table. Eventually, he says,
Actually, I've been living off burnt frozen pizzas and sandwiches for weeks. Would you mind making something hot and fresh for dinner?
Happy to contribute in some way, I answer. I think I can handle that. What sounds good?
I'd love anything that doesn't have a cardboard crust.
He assures me as he breezes out of the kitchen with his half-eaten sandwich. Within moments, the door to his man cave closes behind him, and I'm left alone again. At least this time, I have a project to occupy my mind. As I turn to see what kind of foods are available in his large, walk-in pantry, I catch a glimpse of the reunion invitation and amend my previous thought. Actually, I have two projects, and one of them is going to thoroughly annoy the artist criminal rescuer locked away in the next room. This should be fun.
Chapter 9. It's hard to concentrate on my work when I know alluring Kendall is right outside my office. But having her here is even more of an incentive to right the wrongs I've made. I want to be the kind of man she deserves, and I can't be that without fixing my mistakes. My relationship with Kendall is so hot and cold, I can't figure out if she is attracted to me or not. There is definitely a deep lake of tension bubbling below the surface of our interactions, but it's impossible to get a reading of whether it's based on love or hate. I think I'm starting to understand the old adage about there being a fine line between the two. That line keeps getting blurrier with Kendall. I want to dislike her and get her out of my personal space as quickly as possible, but my body, and to some degree, my heart, wants to keep her here by my side forever. I glance at the monitors and watch her rummaging through the kitchen cabinets, presumably searching for something to make for dinner. I text my housekeeper, Maria, and ask her to deliver some fresh groceries for meals. Even though I haven't asked Maria to bring anything other than frozen pizzas and sandwich fixings for months, the discreet and polite woman immediately responds that she will take care of it. Many weeks, Maria is the only person I interact with outside of my computer screen. The grandmotherly woman must feel that I'm at least eccentric or, more likely, completely odd, but she hides any harsh opinions well. Rather than working, I find myself watching Kendall as she glides around the kitchen. The woman is graceful and fluid in a way that's completely mesmerizing. I could watch her all day. An alert pops up on my main monitor that draws my attention away from Kendall. After shaking my head, I turn off the security camera screen and force my eyes to focus on my work. I'm in the midst of a major crisis right now, and the last thing I need is to be distracted by a beautiful woman who is way out of my league. Once I'm in the groove of working, hours go by in what seems like the blink of an eye. When I finally have a break in the action, I have no idea what time it is, or even if it's daytime or night. That's how ingrained I get in the tasks at hand when I'm in the flow, with no irresistible and frustrating woman distracting me from what needs to be done. I stand up from my ergonomically designed lumbar-supporting desk chair and stretch my arms high over my head. I'm used to sitting for long periods of time, but afterwards I feel the urge to move my body. After doing some push-ups, sit-ups, jumping jacks, and lunges, the hunger hits. When I'm working, I don't think about such trivial pursuits as eating, but as soon as I stop, the hunger pangs kick in. My belly growls urgently when I finish my lunges, so I decide to go make myself a frozen pizza. As soon as the steel door to my high-tech office slides open, the marvelous aroma nearly knocks me backward. I breathe in deep to savor it. That's when I see Kendall curled up on the sofa and snoring softly. Is she waiting for me? The idea is both absurd and mesmerizing. I remind myself that it doesn't matter because she's only here for a few days, but even as I'm thinking it, my chest is swelling with hope that she stayed up in the hopes of seeing me. Even though I don't want to wake her, I'm drawn to her. As I gently cover her with the chunky knit blanket from the back of my sofa, she stirs. Before her eyes open, she stretches and smiles like a lazy kitten after a long afternoon nap. I want nothing more than to snuggle up next to her and curl my body protectively around hers. Instead, I freeze and wait to see if she'll fall back asleep. Eventually, her eyelids flutter open. In a sleepy, husky tone, she murmurs,
"Hi."
Certain that my voice won't work properly, I clear my throat before answering, "Hi." When she sits up, I see how tousled her hair is. My fingers itch to dive into the silky strands, so I ball my hands into fists to keep from acting on the strange urge.
"Maria and I made dinner,"
she says as she stands and leads me into the kitchen. "It smells marvelous," I tell her honestly. She nods her head.
"Maria is quite a cook. If I were you, I'd hire her as a full-time personal chef."
I don't have the chance to respond before Kendall continues.
"Of course, you'd probably have to pay her a fortune to get her to leave her huge family every day. Can you even imagine having 8 kids and 14 grandkids? She is so blessed."
Kendall's voice has taken on a wistful tone, so I shake my head and say, "I guess so." I didn't know anything about Maria's family, nor has she ever before stayed to cook after making a supply delivery and cleaning. It's not that I don't care or want to know Maria, I have just always tried to maintain a professional distance. After a perfunctory greeting, I generally hide in my office while the woman puts away the groceries and cleans my house. It never dawned on me that Maria might like to talk and share details about our lives with each other. Kendall's natural warmth brought out in one afternoon a side of the woman that I've never gotten to know in all of these years of her working for me. My social ineptitude is on vivid display, but Kendall doesn't even seem to notice as she puts a plate heaped with generous portions of enchiladas and rice in the microwave. The savory aroma becomes even more delectable as the food reheats. Once the microwave dings, Kendall retrieves the plate, grabs a fork and delivers both to the table. When she gives me an expectant look, I hurry over to sit down as I say, "Oh, you made me a plate."
Of course.
She answers as if I have a gorgeous woman in my kitchen every day. Kendall adds some smaller portions to a second plate and puts it in the microwave as she says,
"It's the least I can do since you're letting me stay here."
My food is steaming, but I only have the patience to blow on it briefly before taking the first bite. It's hot but delicious. A low, satisfied groan emerges from my throat as I chew. The sound makes Kendall stop and look at me with shock obvious in her gaze. Feeling awkward, I swallow audibly. Her voice is scratchy when she says,
"That sound was hot. Is food the only thing that makes you moan like that?"
I can't take my eyes off the intriguing woman as I answer, "No." The last thing I'm expecting in this moment is for her to tip back her head and laugh, but that is exactly what she does. I'm not sure whether to laugh with her, kiss her, or hide from her. When she brings her hot plate to the table and sits down, she hints,
"I know one other thing that you're as passionate about as food."
Certain that she can somehow tell how much I want her, I try to keep my cool as I ask, "What's that?" She surprises me by answering,
"Artwork. You must be passionate about something you are so talented at, right?"
I shrug my shoulders, not wanting to let her know how truly vital painting is to my existence. I've been spending too much time in front of my computer's screens and not enough in front of canvases in my studio, and the imbalance is starting to wear on me. Kendall's gorgeous eyes are gleaming as she lifts one arm over her head and says dramatically,
"Paint me like one of your French girls, Jack."
My face twists in confusion and hurt feelings. "Jack? My name is Thom."
"I know that, silly.
Kendall sounds exasperated.
It's a movie reference from Titanic."
At my blank look, the woman's mouth falls open.
"Don't tell me you've never seen the late 90s movie version of Titanic."
I never really saw the point, since I already know how it ends, I answer.
"But seeing the characters and watching Jack and Rose fall in love makes it all feel so real. It really is a must-see. In fact, I know what we're doing tonight,"
she announces before she shoves a big bite of enchilada into her mouth. I'm exhausted and just want to go to bed, preferably with Kendall by my side. But if she has her heart set on watching some depressing movie, then that's exactly what we'll do because somehow, despite my efforts to the contrary, I've started falling for Kendall Landish. Darn it.
Chapter 10. It's incomprehensible to me that someone can go through his entire life and never watch the movie Titanic. It's a classic that I've seen at least a dozen times. As Thom searches for the movie in his on-demand library, I settle in on the sofa and make myself comfortable. The man may be a total workaholic and grump, but instinct tells me that he's a secret softie on the inside. Granted, my gut has steered me wrong before, but for some reason I still want to trust it. Deciding to try to bring out his playful side, I say, "I know you're going to enjoy this movie."
Don't bet on it,
he says in a dry tone. "Why not?" I ask, challenging him. "If you're so confident that you won't like it, let's place a friendly wager on it." I can tell his interest is piqued when he turns to me with a raised brow. His gaze rakes over me just before he asks,
"What do you have in mind?"
Tapping my chin, I pretend to think it over before saying, "If you like the movie, you'll go to your class reunion." He starts shaking his head before I get the entire sentence out. In a firm tone, he says,
"No."
"Why not?" I ask, crossing my arms. When silence greets me, I begin pleading my case. "I'll go with you, and talk to anyone who will listen about how successful you are."
Pass,
he says simply. Unwilling to back down, I say, "I may not look like much right now, but I clean up pretty well. I can be your arm candy." He chuckles at that, and I know that I'm wearing him down. Eventually, he says,
"Let's pretend I'm willing to accept this challenge. When I fall asleep halfway through the movie, what do I get?"
"A nice nap, I guess." When he shakes his head, I feel my cheeks flush as I ask in a husky voice, "What do you want?" The intense way he looks at me makes me wonder if he'll demand a bedroom favor in return for winning the wager. I want to be appalled by the mere idea of it, but there's no denying that I'm more than a little intrigued by the mysterious man. Spending a night in his bed wouldn't be the worst thing imaginable. In fact, I'm quite certain I would enjoy it immensely. His jawline twitches as he ponders his answer, which makes me wonder if he's having the same naughty thoughts as I am. He strokes his chin before saying,
"If I hate the movie, you have to tell me 5 things you love about being in the desert."
I scrunch up my nose. It would be much easier to come up with 5 things I hate about it. At his glare, I begin ticking them off on my fingers. I'm thirsty all the time, my skin is so dry it feels like scales, my nose keeps bleeding at random times, it's as hot as the sun outside, and even when there's a breeze, it feels like blasting a blow-dryer in my face. As an afterthought, I add, "Oh, and don't even get me started on the rattlesnakes and scorpions." When I smile with pride over my success, he says,
"There are plenty of things to love about it here, too."
I pretend to think it over before saying, "It's not as easy to come up with 5 things to love about the harsh, dry, desolate, and hot desert." He taps the button on the remote to select the movie.
"That's the deal. If I fall asleep during this movie or dislike watching it, you have to sing the desert's praises."
"I can try," I offer, sounding as uncertain as I feel. He narrows his gaze at me.
"And it has to be believable."
"Right," I say in a flat tone.
"Do we have an agreement?"
He asks, holding his hand out for me to shake. Having no faith in my ability to actually come up with 5 things I like about this desert wasteland, I ask, "How do I know you won't just claim you don't like the movie even though you secretly love it?"
"I truly don't think we have to worry about me loving it, but you have my word as a gentleman that I'll admit the truth if I do happen to enjoy it."
"You're a gentleman, huh?" I say as I shake his hand to agree to our bet. When he nods in answer, I whisper the word, "Shucks." A surprised laugh bursts out of him, and I really enjoy the sound of it. When Mr. Grumpy relaxes for a moment, he's almost irresistible. With our wager established, Thom starts the movie. He then settles into the couch, putting his feet up and covering us both with a soft blanket. "Don't get too comfortable," I warn him, not wanting him to fall asleep before the movie has a chance to capture his attention.
"As if I could sleep with your warm thigh pressed up against mine."
He murmurs the words so quietly that I turn to see if he actually said them, or if they were just in my vivid imagination. Thom is staring so intently at the movie theater-sized screen, I'm left wondering if he feels the same strong attraction to me as I have toward him. As I had suspected, he becomes drawn into the characters' stories in the movie. Since I've already seen it so many times, I take the opportunity to watch his reactions out of my peripheral vision. It's clear that he's engrossed in the storyline, as I curl my legs up, lean my head on his shoulder and snuggle into his warmth. The next thing I know, I wake up to daylight streaming through the windows. I'm alone on the sofa, covered in the blanket Thom and I shared last night, and the television is off. I stretch and pad into the kitchen. I'm thrilled to see a fresh pot of coffee and pour myself a cup, but am bummed not to discover any other signs of Thom. He's probably already sealed himself off in his mysterious chamber for the day. I can't believe I wasted last night's quality alone time with him by falling asleep. Deciding there isn't anything I can do about it at this point, I begin making some scrambled eggs and bacon. Perhaps the scent of a hot breakfast will lure Thom out of his lair for a few minutes. Sure enough, just as I'm scooping the eggs with cheddar cheese melted in them onto 2 plates, Thom emerges.
Smells delicious,"
he tells me in an approving tone as he refills his coffee mug. "It's the least I can do after falling asleep during the movie that I insisted we watch," I say in a sheepish tone. Unable to stave off my curiosity, I ask, "So, did you like it? Or you turned it off and went to bed, since you already knew how it would end?"
"It kills me to say it, but I enjoyed the entire movie, right up until she threw the heart of the ocean necklace into the sea."
"I know. Right?" I say, agreeing wholeheartedly. "Why would she do that?" Thom shrugs one wide shoulder before saying,
"Sure seemed like a selfish act to me."
Suddenly it dawns on me. Wait, so you like 99% of the movie? That means I win our bet, and we're going to your class reunion. Thom groans in defeat, despite the half-smile that tips up one side of his mouth.
Ugh. Now my ship is sunk. Chapter 11. As much as I don't want to go to my class reunion, there is no denying I'm thrilled to be taking Kendall as my date. Teenage Thom would have never believed such a beautiful, vivacious woman would willingly accompany him anywhere, let alone force me into taking her. Wanting her to feel pampered, I pull up the website for a high-end department store. Handing Kendall the tablet, I say, pick out a dress and shoes and have them sent here by express delivery. Kendall glances down at the screen before saying,
I can't afford any of this. Perhaps we could drive to the nearest town, and I could try to find a dress that will work?
It's taken care of, I assure her. At her questioning gaze, I add, order anything you like. Her long dark eyelashes flutter as if she can't quite believe her ears. Teasing her, I add, if you're going to be my arm candy, you have to look the part. The wide, pretty smile she flashes at me is absolutely breathtaking. When she looks at me like that, I'm certain that I would do anything she asks of me, even go to a reunion to face my former tormentors and bullies. Time seems to fly by at an unprecedented rate, and before I know it, I'm sitting in an uncomfortable dark gray suit, waiting for my date to emerge from the bathroom, so I can take her to the reunion I swore as a teenager I would never attend. I couldn't wait to graduate high school, and I thought that once I did, nothing would ever convince me to return. Apparently, all it takes to make me about face is an impossibly desirable woman and an ill-advised bet. My knees jiggle as I wait for her. There isn't a single person I want to see at this reunion. I would much rather whisk Kendall away on a romantic evening for just the two of us, but I'm certain she won't go for that. For some strange reason, she's adamant that I need to go to this fiasco. When she finally emerges and joins me in the living room, my breath hitches. She's drop-dead gorgeous in the hip-hugging emerald green dress she's wearing, and she has a stunning, curvy figure to go along with her beauty. Her tall heels accentuate her shapely legs. I swallow audibly in the quiet room as I drink in the sight of her. She brushes a nervous hand down the front of her dress before asking,
Do I look decent enough to impress the jerks that used to pick on you?
I can't believe this is what she's worried about. Oh yes, I reassure her. She still looks uncertain, so I stand and take her hand within mine as I say, they won't be able to believe you're there with me.
I don't know why not,
she says as she gazes up into my eyes. It's all I can do to focus as the delightful, lightly floral scent of her perfume wafts in my direction, but I force myself to pay attention to her words as she continues.
You're handsome, successful, smart, talented, and hardworking. They shouldn't be surprised if you were to show up with a supermodel on your arm.
I notice she hasn't included any descriptors like fun or charming in her list of compliments about me. Deciding I need to be more vulnerable with her if I want any hope of forging a real romantic relationship with her, I say in a sincere tone, you're as lovely as any supermodel, but even a real supermodel couldn't make me prouder to escort her tonight. Despite the hammering of my heart in my chest from both nerves over seeing my classmates and desire for Kendall, I work to keep my voice steady as I hold out my bent elbow toward her and ask, shall we?
Absolutely,
she answers as we head toward the front door. Once I turn on my home's elaborate security system, I lead her down the brick pathway around the largest dune near the house. She gasps when she catches sight of the helipad and a waiting helicopter.
No way. Are we taking this to your reunion?
Her free hand rises up to pat her chest. If it's okay with you, I answer, suddenly angry with myself for not asking her beforehand. I'd been too excited to surprise her to think about any fears she may have about flying. She alleviates my concerns by bobbing her head up and down enthusiastically.
Oh yes. I've always wanted to ride in one.
When we approach, she furrows her brows in my direction and asks,
Where's our pilot?
That would be me, I answer simply. She stops walking, so I follow suit. After gazing at me for a long time, she finally asks,
Is there anything you can't do?
Chuckling with relief that this is her question, I answer, plenty.
Such as?
She presses. I hesitate before saying, I can't make you fall in love with me. A small smile forms on her luscious lips, before she hints in a flirtatious tone,
We'll see.
Despite the sizzling tension between us, I wouldn't blame her for not falling for me. Besides, even if a miracle happens and she decides she wants to be with me, I don't deserve her. Nothing will ever change that. Bringing me out of my daze, Kendall angles her head toward the copter and says,
"Let's go."
I help her climb in before performing my final pre-flight check. Once I'm satisfied that all is in order, we test our headsets and I make quick work of getting us in the air. Kendall sounds like a child on Christmas morning as she gasps in delight over the sights below as we zoom toward the small town where I grew up. We make the landing on the town's only helipad and climb into the waiting limo. After I pour us each a glass of champagne, Kendall clinks hers with mine before saying,
"Cheers to showing your doubters that they were wrong about you."
I nod and take a gulp of the bubbly liquid, without bothering to correct her that they were more haters than doubters. As we drive nearer the restaurant, my nerves kick into high gear. I don't know what I was thinking when I agreed to come back here. This place was never truly my home when I lived here, and it certainly isn't a place that I feel any nostalgia for or want to make a triumphant return to. It's all I can do to keep from ordering the chauffeur to turn the car around. I refrain because I don't think my voice will work properly right now anyway, since my throat is clogged with what feels like a hot orange. As soon as we arrive in front of the restaurant, Kendall bounds out of the back seat before I can stop her. Left with little choice but to follow her, I reluctantly emerge from the vehicle. Any hope that things might have changed immediately dissipates when I hear a taunting voice yell from just down the sidewalk.
Well, looky who's here. It's Tom Toilet Bum.
Chapter 12. I'd thought perhaps Tom was being overly dramatic about his high school woes, but after hearing that jerk taunt him with that disgusting nickname, I realize he hasn't been exaggerating at all. Tom's entire demeanor changes. He stops walking and his shoulders slump downward in obvious embarrassment. Turning to me, he says,
I'm sorry. We shouldn't have come here.
"Just ignore him," I say, even though I know the suggestion falls short of being truly helpful. Another overgrown ape joins the original heckler on the sidewalk, and they both begin laughing loudly.
I've tried ignoring their taunts for years, and I thought perhaps I'd outgrown being intimidated by them, but the memories that name evokes still haunt me.
Tom admits quietly. I wonder if I've pushed him too hard by insisting that he come back here, but I can't let him tuck tail and run. Leaving now would only let them win. You're the winner here, not those bullies. Tom gives me a lopsided, sad smile.
I don't feel like a winner. The nickname stems from an incident when I wasn't feeling well at school, but refused to leave because of an important exam. I accidentally ran to the girls' restroom, and the most popular girl in school saw and heard everything. Of course, she couldn't wait to tell everyone in school about it.
I press my fingertip over his surprisingly soft lips. Shush. It's okay. Kids are mean. Glaring over at the snickering idiots, I add, and apparently some people never grow out of that phase. But you can't let that one moment define you. They don't get to set the narrative. You do. And you are a winner, if I ever met one. Relief is evident in Tom's expression as he searches my face, obviously trying to gauge my sincerity. Sounding uncertain, he asks,
You really think so?
Absolutely, I answer. Now, it's time to forget about those bullies and move forward with your life. To enunciate my words and show those jerks that my genius artistic date isn't in any way a loser, I tilt my head to the side, lean up and press my lips to Tom's. Our kiss is tentative at first, but he quickly takes charge and deepens it. Desire spears through me, and I moan into his mouth as his tongue seeks and gains entry through my lips. Some still rational sliver of my brain hears the jeering that quickly peters out as our passionate kiss continues. Eventually, Tom pulls back. He steadies me as I falter, breathless from our earth-shattering make-out session. After turning his head to the side, Tom confirms,
They're gone. Nice work with the fake kiss. I think they bought it.
I can't do anything but blink blankly at him. Fake kiss. Nothing in my life has ever felt more real. How can he possibly think that fabulous, life-affirming kiss was just for show?
If we keep up this charade all evening, perhaps people will begin to remember me as something other than the dork who stunk up the girls' restroom in high school.
For the first time all evening, his voice holds a definite hopeful tone. I nod my agreement with his plan, even though this doesn't feel at all like a charade to me. After giving him a wobbly smile that I hope looks convincing, I take his hand, and we walk together inside the restaurant. The gathering is loud with the noise of old friends and frenemies sharing stories, laughter, and large amounts of alcohol. Thom leads me to an empty table and sits down. I join him and ask, "Don't you want to mingle and chat with anyone?"
Not really.
He answers, shrugging his wide shoulders.
It's enough for them to see me here with a beautiful woman. I don't particularly want to talk to them.
Okay, I agree, not wanting to push him too much since I've now seen firsthand the way those jerks treat him. When Thom offers to get me a drink, I ask for a margarita on the rocks. I sit alone at the table while he waits in the line at the bar. Looking around, I take advantage of the opportunity to check out his classmates. There is no denying that the women in the room have aged much more gracefully than the men. With the exception of Thom, the males are mostly balding and carrying spare tires around their middles. The vast majority of the ladies are glowing with vibrancy and dressed to the nines. The few exceptions appear to be the dates of the group of overweight, unhappy jerks that used to pick on Thom. My spine stiffens when I see the ringleader, who had started the catcalling at Thom on the sidewalk, sauntering in my direction as if he's all that. The oversized ape proves that he has no ability to read the room by ignoring my scrunched face look of distaste as he mouth breathes in my personal space. I hold my breath and turn my head to the side as he says,
Hey baby. If you want a real man, you should go home with me tonight.
My gaze darts to the goon's date. She is glaring at me as if she would love to run over here and strangle me. I've never understood so many females' instinct to blame other women when their boyfriends are pigs. Of course, I hold my mom accountable for what happened with Lucas, but that was a true betrayal of me on her part too, not just his. The oaf gives me a confident grin, as if my silence proves that I'm on board with his disgusting plan. Not wanting him to think he has a chance with me for a moment longer, I say, if by real man you mean an annoying jerkwad who picks on others to make himself feel better, then the answer is still no. His thick eyebrows furrow as if he is stumped by my response. Apparently, the idea that someone could be appalled by him simply won't register in his tiny brain. Wanting to make sure I'm crystal clear, I add, go back to your date before she realizes what a twit you are and sprints for the exit door. Eventually he turns and slowly lopes back to the poor woman. Her face brightens with obvious delight at his approach, so I decide that perhaps she doesn't deserve too much of my sympathy. After all, she was standing right there when the man picked on Thom before we came inside. When my gaze is drawn to Thom as he waits in line for our drinks, I realize that he's staring at me. The warm look he's giving me makes liquid lava pool in my belly. I've never caught anyone gazing at me with so much adoration and warmth. I give him an over-exaggerated, flirty wink before turning in my seat to watch the couples gyrating on the dance floor. Before I see or hear him, I sense Thom behind me. He isn't touching me, but my entire body thrums with excitement when he is near. When he leans over the back of my chair to whisper in my ear, a shiver of deliciousness quivers along my spine.
You're the hottest woman in this entire restaurant. I want you.
He murmurs. I turn my head slightly to the side to answer in a playful tone. My date hates it when other men hit on me. He sounds like a total jerk, Thom says with a chuckle as he reaches around to set my margarita on the table in front of me. I pick up the glass and take 2 large drinks, hoping it will give me the courage to say what I've been thinking about while watching his classmates dance. When he sits in the chair beside me, I summon my courage before looking into his eyes and suggesting, how about if we find the bathroom and change your nickname to Thom Sexbomb?
Chapter 13. I am taking a long pull from my beer bottle when Kendall's hot suggestion registers in my brain. I nearly choke from surprise. This is the last thing I expected the gorgeous, unpredictable woman to say, but it's a splendid idea, and there's no way I'm going to turn down such a wonderful opportunity. Granted, I would like to have more than a short-lived, physical fling with her, but I don't have the willpower to decline the irresistible, desirable woman's offer. Okay then. Let's go, I say, holding my hand out to her as I move to stand. We leave our drinks at the table as we scurry hand in hand toward the restaurant's restroom. The facility has 2 bathrooms, and both doors are marked for men or women to use. I hurry into the farthest one with Kendall hot on my heels. She clicks the lock into place behind her, then lunges in my direction, immediately clearing away any doubts I had about if this is what she truly wants. Kendall redacted and presses her lips against mine, in the most tender yet thrilling kiss I've ever enjoyed. It holds the promise of so much more than a simple kiss. I force myself to hold back, letting her lead the way. When she finally tilts her head back, the luscious lipstick she's wearing is smeared all around her mouth. I'm sure it's on mine as well, and nothing could make me prouder. She's breathing heavily as she wraps her arms tightly around my neck. I follow her lead and embrace her waist with my arms.
Do you want to wait?
She asks, her tone filled with uncertainty. No, I answer, a chuckle bursting out of me at the preposterous idea. At her hurt expression, I clarify, I've never wanted anyone so much in my entire life, but I won't rush you.
You're not rushing me,
she assures me, tipping up to press her lips to mine once more. This time, I let myself get lost in the kiss. Our mouths devour each other, as our hands redacted. I back her up against the wall, and lean into her as my palm redacted. I want all that she can give me. I'm desperate for her as scorching desire snakes through my veins, leaving me redacted. Our eager hands redacted. Redacted. Her head turns to the side as she redacted. Redacted. She lifts her free hand to caress my cheek as she nods her head and says, "Make me yours." With that encouragement, I redacted. Redacted. More. She breathes out the command near my ear. That simple word perfectly mimics the only coherent thoughts swirling around my brain. I'm already lost in her, yet I still crave more. Her hand redacted. Redacted. I press kisses along her jawline and down her neck, as she turns her head to the side and redacted. Her fingers rake through my hair and down my back. When she redacted, it's the unspoken spiritual connection between us that makes this the most intense emotional experience of my entire life. Redacted. I don't care what anyone else thinks, or if they can hear us in the hallway. The only thing that matters is Kendall and redacted. Redacted. She is by far the most beautiful person I have ever seen. I lift my palm to cup her cheek, cherishing her in this moment more than I had believed to be possible. We share a soft look that says more than 1,000 proclamations of love, just before she redacted. Redacted. Our gazes are locked together, and redacted. Redacted fire that has been building inside me since I first saw her stranded on the side of the road. Redacted the woman of my dreams. We stand there for a long moment, redacted in each other's arms. I open my mouth to tell Kendall that I've fallen in love with her, but stop when she says,
"Well, if that noisy display doesn't convince your classmates that you are an absolute stud, I don't know what will." Chapter 14. I could kick myself, or better yet, punch myself in my big mouth. Why in the heck did I imply to Thom that our romantic time was just for show, especially while we were still redacted? My stupid mouth decided to downplay my feelings in order to keep from getting hurt, but from the downcast expression that overtook his features, I'm guessing that I actually hurt Thom's feelings instead. It's too late to take it back now, so I try to soften my harsh words by saying, "That sure was a fun way to convince your bullies that they are wrong about you." Thom pulls back, and I immediately miss redacted. After running his hand through his thick hair, he says,
"Yes, it was fantastic."
Even though his words are enthusiastic, his flat tone doesn't match the sentiment. It's obvious that I have hurt him, but I'm not sure how to make it better without drawing even more attention to my faux pas. As we both fix our clothes, I ask him, "Ready to go out there and strut like a peacock?" It should probably be more of a walk of shame for me, since I was so vocal, but I refuse to be ashamed for having an amazing time with a wonderful man. Once Thom has his suit straightened, he offers,
"Would you like to go out first, then I'll follow you later?"
Deciding I'm in way too deep to chicken out now, I take his hand and say, "No way. We are walking out of here together with our heads held high." The smile he gives me is genuine, so I'm hopeful that my earlier flippant comment didn't hurt his feelings too much. I use my thumb to swipe at the worst of the lipstick surrounding his mouth, tip up to brush my lips lightly across his, then lead him out of the restroom. There is no lack of wide-eyed, gawking gazes as we walk back toward the banquet room. It's obvious that the music from the dance floor didn't drown out the sounds of our restroom redacted. Deciding to own it, I say loudly enough for anyone in the vicinity to hear, "From today onward, this man's nickname will be Thom Sexbomb." The bully from the sidewalk sneers in our direction.
He probably hired her to fake all of those passionate noises. Women are only that vocal and redacted.
Giving him a fake, sugary sweet smile, I say, perhaps you don't know how to make a woman squeal with delight. Thumbing Thom, I add, but this lady pleaser certainly does. With that, I place my palms on Thom's cheeks and give him a deep tongue-filled kiss. He responds immediately and passionately. Suddenly, it's like we are the only two people in the world, and I feel his hot kiss all the way down to my toes. Jerkwad lets out a sound of disbelief before saying,
Yep, he definitely hired her. This is totally fake.
A few chuckles from the gathered crowd prove that he is swaying their opinions. Thom starts to lead me away, saying,
Come on. It doesn't matter what they think.
I dig my heels in and refuse to budge. I will not let Thom's tormentors win. Seeing no other alternative left to convince them, I gingerly redacted. Ignoring the obvious shock on everyone's faces, I ask, does this look fake to you? This man turned me on so much that redacted. With that, I use my bent pointer finger to drape my underwear over my shoulder as I saunter away. Thom hurries after me. I find a dark corner of the room and Thom shields me as I use his shoulders for balance as I put on my undies. As the reality of what I've just done begins to set into my mind, I feel the blood drain from my face. My heart is racing as I practically wail, I can't believe I just did that. It was so immature and vulgar. What was I thinking? Giving me a sincere, heart-melting gaze, Thom says,
That was the sweetest, bravest thing anyone has ever done for me. You are daring and wonderful, Kendall.
With that, he leans in and gives me a toe-curling kiss that makes everything else slip away. Suddenly, I don't care about these people or what they must be thinking of me. All that matters is Thom and his mesmerizing kiss. When he finally pulls back, I tilt forward trying to bring his lips back to mine. He gives me a knowing grin before asking,
Ready to get out of here?
At my questioning gaze, he adds,
I don't think it would be possible for me to leave on a higher note than you giving my classmates clear evidence that I'm a stallion in the bedroom, or rather, restroom, before walking away like a redacted. You were right, coming here and pretending we're a couple was the best decision ever.
I force my lips to curl up into a smile, even though my face wants to crumple at his use of the word pretending. My throat burns as I nod my agreement and say, yes, let's go.
Chapter 15. Despite how excited Kendall had been over the helicopter ride here, the trip home is considerably more somber. She's eerily quiet, and I'm not sure what to say to bring her back to me. As I point out landmarks and sites of interest during our nighttime flight, she merely nods her head as if this trip is as mundane as a daily commute to work. After we land, Kendall quickly emerges from the copter and heads along the path toward my house. When I catch up with her, she is sitting on a large, red boulder. Her expression is downcast, as if she doesn't have anything to look forward to. Without looking up at me, she says in a monotone voice,
Is my car going to be finished soon? I'm ready to leave.
Panic surges through my veins. I don't want her to leave. I doubt if I ever will. You want to leave? Now? My voice comes out sounding shakier than I would prefer. Sitting beside her on the huge rock and taking her hands within mine, I add in a sincere tone, Kendall, what we did in that restroom together meant something to me. It meant a lot. One side of her mouth tips up into a half smile, before she says,
It meant a great deal to me too, but we both knew it wasn't going to turn into anything more. I can't risk having my heart broken again so soon, so it's probably best if I just go now.
I won't break your heart, I promise her fervently.
You will,
she says just as firmly. Before I can object, she continues,
We both know that we come from two different worlds. You are a wealthy and artistic genius, while I am a poor and untalented plain Jane. There isn't a version of reality where our relationship could work out in the long term.
There is, I tell her confidently. Squeezing her hands in mine, I add, I know there is. There has to be. Remembering another part of her words, I lift one of my hands up to caress her cheek and say, And you are about as far as can be from a plain Jane. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever known. Deciding that sounds too superficial, I add, You are beautiful inside and out. She leans her cheek into my touch, but her eyes are still downcast when she says,
I don't even know you at all. I have no idea what you do all day in that secret room. The only thing I do know is that you don't trust me enough to truly let me in.
I'd been dreading this moment since I first found Kendall. Of course, she wouldn't let me keep so much of my life hidden from her. She deserves to know the truth about me, but if I tell her, she's likely to leave me anyway. Every instinct in my body tells me that it's too risky to share the awful truth with her, but it's obvious that if I don't, I've already lost her. I shake my head, not quite able to believe what I'm about to say. After taking a deep breath for courage, I stand and say, "Come with me, I'll take you inside my secret room."
Really?
She asks, her eyes filled with hope and wonder. "Yes," I answer. Not wanting her to think it's going to be anything grand, I add, "There's a reason I'm so secretive about it, and it's not a good one. Are you sure you want to know?" She swallows audibly as she thinks this over. Her eyes search mine as if she believes she can find the answer she needs within them. Eventually, she nods her head solemnly and backs up the gesture by saying in a scratchy tone,
"Yes, I want to know. I need to know."
"Okay then," I answer, before turning and leading her down the winding path to my home. Once we're standing outside the closed door of my secret lair, I turn to ask her one last time, "You're sure?"
Positive.
She answers without a trace of doubt in her tone. Not feeling nearly as confident as she sounds, I perform the complex series of security protocols that allow the automatic door to slide open. As we enter the room, the feminine electronic voice of my artificial intelligence assistant, Lana, says,
"Tom, you're not alone. Do you need me to subdue the intruder?"
"No, Kendall is allowed to be here," I say quickly, not wanting the system to go into attack mode. Kendall gives me a wide-eyed stare before blowing air from her mouth.
Thanks for that. I'd hate to be taken down by a robot.
"I never intended for anyone to come in here, so you took her by surprise," I answer.
Right.
She sounds confused, but seems more interested in having a look around than asking more questions. She's drawn to the large art studio first, which pleases me. This side of my lair is the area I'm actually proud of. My heart hammers in my chest as she examines some of my most recent paintings. As I await her assessment, I'm thankful that I haven't yet had time to complete the colorful, vivid portrait of her that has been haunting the artistic side of my brain since her arrival. Even though I feel an incredibly strong, almost palpable connection to this woman, the last thing our still new relationship needs is for her to get any inkling of how consumed I am by her. I let out a relieved whoosh of air when she turns to me and says,
"These pieces are stunning. They should be in a gallery."
"I've never really been interested in doing art for money. I create to release the stress of my actual job." I flick my hand out to indicate the other side of the room, and her gaze follows. She gasps when she takes in the wall of screens and complex system of hard drives and monitors. Blinking up at me, she asks,
"Are you Batman?"
Her tone had only been half joking, but I can't contain the chuckle that bursts out before I turn serious and answer, "No, I wish I was using my money and power for the greater good, but I'm not the hero of this story." At her questioning gaze, I continue, "I've always been a bit of a computer coding prodigy. My intent was to use my skills for the benefit of mankind. I wanted to be a hero." At her soft smile, I forge onward. I created a program that could hack through nearly any kind of security wall and siphon information. She's gaping at me, but I'm in too deep to stop my explanation now. My intent was for law enforcement officials to be able to utilize the information to capture criminals. I even built in a failsafe so the information couldn't be obtained and used by the wrong people, but another hacker figured it out and disabled it before releasing the entire codebase to the world. The color has completely drained from Kendall's face, making it obvious that she has figured out exactly who I am and what I've done. Confirming that, she says in a monotone voice,
"You're the one who caused the massive live chat data breach that is wreaking havoc on the entire world."
"Yes, but you have to believe that was never my intent. It has spiraled out of control and created more chaos than I could have begun to imagine. If I'd known what would happen, I never would have written the protocols. But once they were released via open source code, there was no way for me to contain the spread. The programming has taken on a life of its own." Her tone is still flat, but her eyes are fiery with accusation as she says,
"You're the reason I found my boyfriend with my mom. You're the reason my life is ruined."
I'd known this was the way she would most likely see it, but it still hurts to hear the words emerge from her mouth. Unable to defend myself, I merely nod my head. The crushed expression drawing Kendall's features downward devastates me, but I don't even try to stop her as she covers her mouth with her hand and runs from the room.
Chapter 16. I sprint for my bedroom and slam the door behind me. Of all the things Thom could have been doing in that dumb secret room, this is one of the worst answers I can imagine. He has ruined so many lives, including mine. After stepping out of my gorgeous shoes and gown, I carefully hang the dress and gently place the heels below it. Just because I'm mad at Thom doesn't mean that my anger should be taken out on the beautiful formal wear. As much as I'd love to take the ensemble with me, my pride won't allow it. I put on my ratty old clothes and toss my belongings into my bag before looking around the room to make sure I haven't forgotten anything. Even as rage courses through my veins, the rational side of my brain and a huge portion of my heart want to forgive him and stay here. Reminding myself what he has done, I repeat the mantra silently to myself. I'm mad at him, and I have every right to be. I'm not in love with him. As much as I want to believe my stubborn chant, my heart screams otherwise. Trying my best to ignore it, I sit on the edge of the bed and stare at the closed door. I startle when he raps on it, even though it's a quiet knock. Not trusting my voice to remain steady for more than one word, I ask in a crisp tone, "What?"
Your car is finished and will be delivered shortly. I'll stay in my office so you don't have to see me on your way out.
His voice sounds sad, and I ache to reach out to him. Reminding myself that I have every right to be angry, I respond, "Good." The shadows of his feet remain visible under the threshold of the door for a long moment, as if he wants to say more, but eventually they disappear. As I sit there waiting for my car, it dawns on me that the chances are very slim that they called late on a Saturday night to say it was ready. He had likely known it was finished for a while and opted to keep me stranded here with him, like a prisoner. I allow that knowledge to fuel my anger at him as I grit my teeth together and jiggle my feet on the floor. Never mind that my sister had offered to send money for me to get a hotel as soon as she found out about my current living situation. That was different. My phone chirps and vibrates with a text. As soon as I see that it's from Thom, my emotions surge. My heart flutters, then aches, when I remember my resolve to be furious with him. The phone reads,
I'm sorry. I hope that someday you'll find it in your heart to forgive me. I care a great deal about you, Kendall. Your car is outside. Goodbye.
My first instinct is to ask how much I owe for the car repairs, but I know he won't let me pay. Besides, I already spent all of my spare cash on finding out that dreadful secret, and Thom has more money than he knows what to do with. After typing and erasing numerous drafts, I eventually end up responding, "Thank you for not leaving me to die alone in the desert. Goodbye." It sounds formal and dismissive, but my fury won't allow me to send anything with more warmth. Besides, I'm afraid if I send anything that gives him any hope, he might come out of his room to talk to me again. I probably wouldn't have the strength to leave with him standing there asking me not to go. But I need to get some distance from him and this place to clear my head. Wanting to get out of here before I change my mind, I haul my bag over my shoulder and head outside. My car starts right up and runs smoother than it ever has in the entire time I've owned it. It's also clean, way cleaner than it was when it went into the shop. The gas tank is full, and the odor of stale fast food has been replaced by a fresh, leathery smell. Apparently, Thom's kind of money gets a different level of service from car repair shops than I've ever experienced. It would be easy to get used to the many perks that would come from being in a relationship with Thom, but I can't allow myself to think about that. Besides, money has never been a huge motivator for me. It would be fun to be rich, but I'd rather be happy than wealthy. That thought catches in my mind as the tears trail down my cheeks. Would I really rather be happy? If so, why am I driving far and fast to get away from the amazing man who makes me feel more alive and seen than anyone else ever has? As much as it hurt to see Lucas redacted, I have to admit that I was more stunned and damaged by my mom's betrayal than his. I'd enjoyed being with Lucas, but on some level, I'd always known that we weren't meant to be together for the long haul. I may not have wanted to admit it to myself, but deep down, I had known that he wasn't my soulmate. I sniffle and swipe the back of my hand across my nose. Is it possible that Thom is my soulmate? He makes me feel things I've never felt before. He's an impossibly talented artist, and he is the smartest person I know. He's generous, almost to a fault. He is kind and caring. Plus, he's a giving and passionate redacted. Even though he didn't do it on purpose, he also unleashed a holy terror of a computer program on the world that is ruining lives at an unprecedented pace, my stubborn mind reminds me. Without his code, I would still be oblivious and dating my cheating boyfriend. I'd be going to lunch with Mom, not having any idea that she was redacted behind my back. Thom ruined my life. I squint my eyes as I stare at the long, wavy pavement ahead of me. Did he ruin my life, or did he save it? What kind of quality of life did I really have when two of the people I cared about the most were secretly betraying me? My mind and heart are warring with each other as I bang my fist in frustration on the steering wheel. Suddenly discovering clarity, I slow my car and make a U-turn in the middle of the empty road. I race towards Thom's house. Now that I have made my decision, I can't wait to be back in his arms. I just hope he'll forgive me for flying off the handle and leaving the way I did. The car slows as I approach his house. My nerves kick into overdrive as I pull to a stop and park. While my heart hammers in my chest, I realize I am about to have one of the most important conversations of my life. I emerge from my car and am staring at Thom's massive front door when he flings it open. We remain frozen there for a long moment, gazing at each other. It's hard to tell which one of us moves first, but in an instant we are running toward each other. After I launch myself into Thom's strong embrace, we both say, "I'm sorry," at the same time. We chuckle, then Thom says in a sincere tone,
I'm so sorry for the pain my code has caused you, and everyone else it has negatively affected. That was never my intention.
"I know," I assure him. "And I'm sorry for leaving like that. I want to be with you, always."
Always?
He asks me between frantic kisses. "Yes, if you'll have me." I wait with bated breath to see how he'll respond. Rather than speaking, he gives me a long, deep, earth-shattering kiss that leaves me breathless. When we come up for air, I ask, "Can I take that as a yes?"
You can take that as a heck yes. I'll have you for as long as you want me, sweet lady.
With that, he sweeps me into his strong arms and carries me inside to our happily ever after. Epilogue. Thom hands me a sketch and says,
Here, I drew you like my French girls.
It takes me a moment to catch the movie reference, but when I do, I smile wide as I gaze at the amazing drawing of me sleeping topless. "When did you make this?"
This morning after we redacted.
He answers, his eyes twinkling at the memory. I can't stop grinning as I gaze at the gorgeous rendering. Is this really how you see me?
As the most beautiful woman in the world. Yes.
He tells me before leaning down to brush his lips across mine. Even after all of this time, his kiss still thrills me beyond compare. When we reluctantly break apart, I say, "I was just going in to take a shower. Care to join me?" He groans before saying,
There is nothing I'd enjoy more, but I have a video conference call with a group of investors who are interested in purchasing my artwork as NFTs.
I don't understand the intricacies of non-fungible tokens, but I know enough to realize that thanks to his love of coding and art, Thom is about to become even more wealthy. He already has more money than he knows what to do with, but I have an idea percolating that I've been wanting to discuss with him.
Rain check.
He asks. At his hopeful, raised brow gaze, I answer, "Definitely, but if I yell for you, come running to rescue me. I don't want to deal with another scorpion on my towel without you." His expression falls.
If you'd rather move somewhere else, we can do that. I know you're not a fan of living in the desert.
This place is growing on me, I tell him, wrapping my arms around his neck.
Is that so?
He asks, perking up. Yep, I assure him. Ticking items off on my fingers, I say, "It's warm and sunny nearly all the time, my hair dries almost instantly, it's so quiet I can fully focus, the stars seem endless and impossibly bright, and I get you all to myself all of the time. There, I discovered 5 things I love about living here, even though you didn't win our Titanic movie bet." At his relieved smile, I add, "Perhaps we could go on a beach vacation a couple of times a year so I can get my water fix?"
You've got a deal.
He happily agrees, before tipping down to kiss my forehead. I reluctantly release my hold on him, since I know he has a virtual appointment. As he turns to walk out of the room, his cell phone jingles in his pocket. He pauses and gives the screen a strange look before answering in a wary tone.
Hey Lane? What's up?
My curiosity is piqued. Thom has mentioned his older brother a couple of times, but I always got the distinct impression that the two of them aren't close and don't talk often. Lane is extremely athletic and was always popular in school. The expectation that Thom would follow in his brother's ball-playing footsteps were part of the reason smart, gawky teenage Thom was picked on so much. From what I've been able to gather, Thom doesn't blame Lane for the problems he had. The two have simply never had much in common. Thom does a lot of listening and head nodding, but remains quiet. I can tell by his wide-eyed expression that something is terribly wrong. I'm proven right when Thom finally speaks.
Did you call 911?
At this, I walk over to take his free hand. He listens to his brother, then says,
Okay, listen to me. With as many balls as you've caught in your lifetime, this should be a piece of cake. You've got this. Good luck, brother.
After they sign off the call, Thom answers my questioning gaze by explaining.
Lane is on the side of the highway during a traffic jam with a woman in labor. He can't get through to emergency services because they are bombarded with calls from a bad traffic accident, and he was the kid that fainted during the childbirth video in health class.
Oh no. I gasp, using my free hand to cover my mouth. Thom's expression softens as he gazes down at me.
Don't worry. My brother always lands on his feet. He can handle this.
Taking him at his word, I say, okay, you probably won't hear back from him for a while, so you can go take your business call. It's obvious that the surprise call from his brother has distracted him from the NFT meeting when he says,
Oh right,
leans down to give me a sweet peck on the cheek, and hurries toward his office. With him gone, I resume the preparations for my plan. I take a long, luxurious shower, then don the silky red pajamas Thom gave me for Christmas. Just as I emerge from the bathroom, the timer on the oven begins buzzing. I rush to the kitchen and remove the piping hot lasagna from the oven. I'm pouring us both a generous glass of red wine when Thom emerges from his office, studio. After handing one of the glasses to him, I ask, how did it go?
Splendidly.
He answers, sounding thrilled as he explains the finer points of the incredibly lucrative deal to me. Truly happy for him, I putter around the kitchen plating our food as I listen. Once we're both seated at the table, I clear my throat and say, there's something important I'd like to discuss with you. Thom looks slightly wary about what may be coming. It's nothing bad, I assure him with a genuine smile. As I open my mouth to continue, my phone begins ringing. I pick it up, annoyed at the intrusion, even though the caller couldn't possibly know about the important conversation I'm having. When I see Mom on the screen, I'm even more irritated. Of course, she chooses this moment to finally reach out to me. I let out an exasperated sigh, turn the phone around to show Thom, then click the button to ignore her call. Thom says,
You'll have to talk to her at some point. She did a horrible thing, but she's the only mom you'll ever have.
I know, I answer. When he narrows his eyes in my direction, I say, I'll call her back later, but right now, I have something I've been thinking about for a while that I'd like to address with you. My words sound more formal than I intend. Thom sets his fork down, leans forward and says,
You have my full attention.
Oddly nervous, I say, I know that you feel guilty about your part in the live chat data breach. He nods his agreement, but doesn't interrupt me. I've been trying to figure out something useful I can do with my life, and I was thinking that perhaps you could start a charity to help fix the repercussions of the leak and then hire me to run it.
Fix things how?
He asks, sounding truly curious. We could brainstorm ideas, but to start with, we could create a hotline people could call for help with fixing their credit problems from having their identities stolen. We could offer counseling for people who find out they've been betrayed. Perhaps we could provide legal counsel for those who need it. There are a whole host of services that people need after they are hit by this data breach. He stares at me for so long, I begin to wonder if maybe my plan is crazy. Staring down at the table, I shrug my shoulders and say, it's just an idea. We don't have to do anything with it, if you don't think it will help anyone. Moving to kneel in front of my chair, he says in a sincere, happy tone,
It's a brilliant idea, and I can't wait to get started. Finally, I can do something to help the people my code has harmed.
Relief surges through me at his enthusiastic response. Looking deeply into my eyes, he says,
You're a genius.
"You're the genius," I remind him, leaning forward to press my lips to his. After I reluctantly pull back, he says,
This lasagna looks amazing, but I'm hungry for something else right now.
"Oh, what's that?" I ask, raising a brow at him and feigning ignorance because I want to hear him say it.
I want you more than I've ever wanted anyone in my whole life. Each day I think that I can't possibly crave you any more than I already do, and each day I'm proven wrong.
His sweet words make my eyelids grow heavy as I say, "I want you too so much." With that, he begins redacted. Soon nothing else matters, except sharing our ever-growing passion with each other. Tom's athletic brother, Thom Baker, is about to make the most important catch of his life. Perhaps he shouldn't mention to pregnant Bristol Ward that he passed out during the childbirth video in health class. What will happen next? Find out in Arkansas Athlete.